Welcome back to another bonus track.
The main point of last week, or one of the main points of last week, was the fact that we all have a Buddha nature, right? And that we are all to tend to said Buddha nature in a certain way, to take care of it in a certain way, to deal with it in a certain way. Usually, not in the way that we perhaps have the tendency to treat ourselves. We would never visit those kind of things upon the Buddha. But we visit it upon our Buddha nature. We visit it upon ourselves. But the point was, one of the points, that we have a Buddha nature. Does everyone believe that we have a Buddha nature? Yes. We have a Buddha nature. What is the face of your Buddha nature? Don't know yet. Or you know. What is the sound of the Buddha nature? But I have it, right? I have it. I was born with it, like a liver. Everybody's born with a liver. Even though we are born with the liver, and the liver is doing lots of working, we have also a chance, as we do, to torture the liver. Whether alcohol, drugs, stress, anger, very damaging to the liver, right? So we have it, we forget that we have it or don't know that we have it, and so we torment it. But we have it. I say this because what I'm going to say today, as is the case really with any Dharma talks, there are three kinds of listeners. One is a person who agrees. They say, yes, yes. They agree largely on their experience, right? What is being said matches the experience, and the person says, yes. Another way, generally, people do not agree what is being said because they don't have the experience in their own lives. So what is being said, they say, no. Or at the least, they say, not me. Right? Then third person is the one that is not even present. They're occupying space, but their mind is vacant of what's taking place here because they are preoccupied with something else. We should add another kind of person that listens, another kind of listener. Do you believe that there was a person born in India named Siddhartha Gautama? Yes. Do you believe that said person reached enlightenment? I had mentioned that the Buddha never in his talks actually said me or I. Right? He always said yore, or another, we have so many terms, but never said me or I. I did, I didn't do. Right? Why? Because he is speaking from a thusness. Tat agata, tatagata. Right? It's a term frequently in the translations, we see this a lot. And essentially, he is speaking of is. What is? That's right, he's not saying I or me, because I comes with a preference. I like it, I don't like it, this and this one. He says, yore means he's speaking of the thing that is, outside of his personal preference, if you will, outside of our liking or disliking it. It is. We have a Buddha nature. It is. You like it, you don't like it, you know it, you don't know it. None of those things have an effect on its existence. This is a very important point, because now we all believe that the Buddha was born, we all believe that he studied and the suheng he did, we all must believe that he was an extraordinary person even prior to enlightenment. Right? And then that he reaches enlightenment, which is this thing beyond words, this access to the Dharma, the thusness, the way things are. So, does he then say foolish things? Does the Buddha say any foolish thing? Any silly thing? Any stupid thing? Does the Buddha say any greedy thing? No. The Buddha says true thing. Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Who? Pass these out, please. Give one to Dr. Singh. And? Okay, go ahead. Highlights from the Filial Piety Sutra. Excerpts would have been a better word, perhaps. On the account that today is Mother's Day, it is largely what is up there on your right with the images associated with it. Right. Mother's Day. Thus have I heard. At one time the Buddha led the great assembly on a walk when suddenly they came upon a pile of bones. This is not verbatim from the sutras, just so you know. The Buddha placed 5 limbs. That means what? He prostrated himself, deep bow. Right? Now, of course, seeing the Buddha deep bow, Ananda, is kind of shocked. One, shocked at the Buddha doing this deep bow. 2, at the shock that what the Buddha is doing the deep bow towards. And the Buddha is doing a deep bow towards piles of bones. Ananda says, he asks the Buddha, why? I'm sure he's Sajjana, why do you bow to, given the position? Even with the secular world, right? The Buddha is a prince, right? Although he leaves the secular world, nonetheless, he is still born into a princely state. But he's also the Buddha, to whom kings bow. Why then are you bowing to the pile of bones? And the Buddha, first thing he does, he takes out the stick, verbal stick, and he says, although you are my foremost disciples, you have still not achieved a far-reaching understanding. This is if we were to translate it to our modern terms, even though you have been practicing this whole time, you cannot even see past your own nose. Sort of what he says. Now, but they have been practicing, and they have attainments, right? And still, with their attainments, the Buddha sort of scolds them for that it is not far enough reaching. Your insight is not reaching far enough, right? That means there's a confinement to your understanding. Most likely your personal experience, etc., etc. This pile of bones could have belonged to my ancestors from my former lives, said the Buddha. It's not in here. I didn't include it because I wanted a one paper. But what happens is, not only is it a pile of bones, but the Buddha discerns, bowing to the bones, between the bones of men and women, in particular mothers. Ananda asks, how can you tell? During the lifetime, a woman or mother clearly wears clothing that expresses that. Right? Wears her hair a certain way, tends to her hair and say makeup and the dress and the clothing, and carries her in a certain way that says, I am a woman. On the other hand, men wear certain clothes and have certain haircuts and behave that says, I am a man. How do you tell which one is which after death? Right. And the Buddha explains. He says, yes, indeed. During lifetime, it's easy to discern when the woman is pregnant. And it's also kept out of here, but the Buddha talks about 2,500 years ago, the development of a fetus in the womb. Right? The whole pregnancy, step by step, in a very language that is easily understandable. So that it's first like soft tofu. And that's why the first trimester is very dangerous to shake, to temperature change, shock, shake, right? It could lead into miscarriage. So the Buddha goes through the development phases. When the mother is making the baby inside her body, she must use building materials. And those building materials are not something that is delivered from external. It's not the pickles and ice cream that does it in the middle of the night. Right? It is from her physical being. The bone marrow is transformed, right? And the organs are used, and the life force and the physical body is used up to create the baby. That's why the Buddha says you could tell the hollow and dark bones and the bones of the mothers, because they have used themselves up in that. So when we look at these 10 kindnesses that the parents bestow upon the child, we could divide into two sections. One is prior to giving birth, second one is post-birth. Why I want to highlight this, even though it's not blatantly stated, not all of us have had a pleasant experience during our childhood. Right? Our parents, mother, father, whatever, it's not all Disney for many of us. And yet, why would the Buddha, with knowing what the Buddha knows, still, nonetheless, give a teaching like this? Up until the birth part, right? Even though the mother doesn't actively and purposefully turn her bones and her bone marrow and her blood into sustenance for the child, she's not like, oh, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to use up my femur for the breakfast of the child. She's not thinking that, but she's doing it. Automatically. That is to say, she's not purposefully doing it, but she does it. Isn't this enough to be grateful? Usually what we think of is after birth, right? In most cases. even the mistreatment or the suffering or whatever it may be that's visited by the parents, right? Postpartum depression, things of that nature. Yeah, but how come still the Buddha, knowing all that the Buddha knows, says that these 10 are the characteristics of the mother, what the mother does? I'm pretty sure at one point in time, any one of us wanted to not consume something. I'm going to cut out sugar, I'm going to, do no chocolate for, or this and that. How did that work out? We falter, do we not? Even though we have the intention, we falter. Why? Because human. Because even though the thing is a thing, we interject ourselves into the thing. Our ego, our selfishness, our confusion, our delusion, our preoccupation, our kojongkwanyam, the modeled behavior of our parents, the misunderstanding, etc., 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 etc. And so we arrive at, it doesn't matter. Every mother has this the way that she has a Buddha nature, the way that she has a liver. There might be some, despite having a liver, there might be some, what's the hardening of the cirrhosis, created by not knowing any better. No? But nonetheless, these are the things that perhaps in our experience of life have not been, well, I can't check off number 4 because X, Y, and Z, right? I cannot check off number 4. Why? Because mother is too also human. But this is innately in her. But it's blocked by something. That's why, nonetheless, no matter what, these are true. No matter what, these are true. The kindness of providing protection and care while the child is in the womb. What I wanted to do is actually, here, please. You read that first one with the explanation, if you don't mind.
Kindness of providing protection and care while the child is in the womb. The causes and conditions from accumulated eons grow heavy, until in this life the child ends up in its mother's womb. As months pass, the 5 vital organs develop. Within 7 weeks, the 6 sense organs start to grow. A mother's body becomes as heavy as a mountain. The stillness and movements of the fetus are like a Celtic wind disaster. The mother's fine clothes no longer hang properly, so her mirror gathers dust.
Oh. How about that? So her mirror gathers dust. Now, see, this is why the Buddha scolds Ananda and the group to say you have not yet achieved far-reaching understanding. Because listen to what he says. The causes and conditions from accumulated eons grow heavy. This is a reference to lifetimes in the making. Until this life, the child ends up in the mother's womb. Right? That means the seed, the inyan, the connection has been made eons. By whom? By you. And by the, at that time, not mother necessarily, any, maybe siblings, maybe whatever. And then the Buddha says, and now these things begin to form. The Buddha is describing the formation of the fetus in the womb 2,500 years ago. No microscope, no stethoscope, no scope of any kind. The only scope is the mind scope that the Buddha uses. The mind scope that he uses to look into the body, where at the time to dissect the body is sacrilege and it's frowned upon because that's not a thing you do. So no looking into the body had been had. This is at the time when he uses the same scope of the mind to look and describe in the Huamgyong Sutra the layout of the planetary systems that are currently, today, still used by NASA as reference points. So the Buddha's far-reaching understanding sees a thing and declares a thing thusly. Now we agree or disagree, doesn't change a thing. Thusness is, isness is. You want to pass that for the number 2?
The kindness of bearing suffering during birth. The pregnancy lasts for 10 lunar months and culminates in difficult labor at the approach of the birth. Meanwhile, each morning, the mother is seriously ill, and during the day, she is drowsy and sluggish. Her fear and agitation are difficult to describe. Grief and tears fill her breast. She painfully tells her family that she is only afraid that death will overtake her.
Given the historical times, given the modern medicine, how many mothers and or children have died, you think, in childbirth? Right? Which is why we also have the 100-day celebration. Traditionally, when the child is born, 100 days after, we're celebrating, we have like a baby blessing. Why? For those 100 days, traditionally, the baby is not exposed to anybody. Why? Because at that time, we didn't have the medicine. So any virus, anything, the child's gone. So the 100 days after, the immune system is sufficient enough, and then it's the sort of the showing of the baby to the family members, etc., etc. I saw a experiment where men were given like a tense machine. You know, the tense machine that kind of they use it for physical therapy to stimulate muscle movement. But they had given it, and it's supposed to mimic the movement of the child inside the womb of the mother. Right. It didn't go over well. The pain threshold, comparatively speaking, right, it's a very different ball game. Right. Also, considering the physiological need to dilate to the size of the child, right? It's not in here, is it? Oh, it is. Okay, next one, number 3. Who's up?
The kindness of forgetting all the pain which the child has been born. On the day the compassionate mother bears the child, her 5 organs fall open wide, leaving her totally exhausted in body and mind. The blood flows as from a slaughtered lamb, yet upon hearing that the child is healthy, she is overcome with redoubling joy. But after the joy, the grief returns, and the agony wrenches her very insides.
Yeah. The 5 organs open wide. The imagery of this. If you hanker back to the initial part of the sutra, when the Buddha talks about the internal organs, and these organs are how they are utilized to support the development of the fetus, right? Naturally speaking, right, the Buddha is speaking of the time, there's no epidural. Nobody's calming any of these torturous endeavors, right? In its natural state, right? And one can only imagine if one hadn't had the experience. Actually, can one imagine if one didn't have the experience? No. No. The fact that the pelvic bone of the woman is differently structured so that the hinge, the iliosacral joint has to open during the birth, like a door, like the Buddha says, it has to do this. There has to be movement, right? Man cannot, because physiologically not ready for it. It is something. Who's got the next one? All right, so up until this time, we were still talking about we haven't yet taken our initial, what? As you are born, you haven't taken your initial what? Breath? Any other word for that? Complaint.
Well, the mother's complaining, you could bet that.
No, we, as a child, you say the initial breath, right? We come into this world and your first breath. It is not a breath. It is not a breath. It's an initial complaint. From that moment, from that very moment, we just get here and the first thing we say is, wah, right? And that doesn't stop, right? And that doesn't stop. For the entirety of our lives, it doesn't matter how old one is, you complain to your mother all day long about something or other. From the moment we come into this world, the first breath, so kindly put, is the initial and first of the multitude of complaints. Number 4.
The kindness of eating the bitter herself and saving the sweet for the child. The kindness of both parents is profound and deep. Their care and devotion never cease. Never resting, the mother saves the sweet for the child, and without complaint swallows the bitter herself. Her love is weighty, and her emotions difficult to bear. Her kindness is deep, and so is her compassion. Only wanting the child to get its fill. The compassionate mother doesn't speak of her own hunger.
Yeah. With the abundance of food that we are facing, the comfort and the accessibility of food for many people on earth, consider a mother born in circumstances in which this isn't the case. We have the availability. If the mother nowadays, by and large, wants a bitter, she could get herself bitter because she has a pantry full of things and every flavor possibly available, right? And if she wants to give her child a sweet, it too is available because we have accessibility to these things. Right? So again, we might think, well, that I don't see that the case. But did you ever see a mother feeding the child? What is the first measure that the mother checks before she puts anything in the child's mouth? Temperature. So it's not distinctly said the mother is willing to burn herself so that the child isn't burned, but she does. And she does on what? Traditionally on the inner arm, right? Why? Because sensitive. So she tests on the sensitive part of herself so that the complainer can eat sweet or whatever. Do you ever see the mother taking a thing and a tiny morsel of food once the child is able to mastiate, the tiniest more, and she so surgically takes away the things that's the thing and this isn't the thing we ought not eat. Right? Again, perhaps in our day and age, this isn't so much necessary because you uncap a jar of baby food and you have a spoon made of soft jelly-like thing that you can just feed the gumless complainer, right? But in natural circumstances, right? You've hunted or you've gathered something, and you have to tease apart a thing to then, right, naturally speaking. That is to say, if a mother that is born in the lap of luxury today were magically transported into a predicament in which the access to food was not there, this thing would come out of her automatically by nature of motherhood. The way that the Buddha nature never ceases to inform us, but we are so smart. Number 5.
The kindness of moving the child to a dry place and lying and wet herself. The mother is going to be wet so that the child can be dry. With her breast, she satisfies its hunger and thirst. Covering with her sleeve, she protects it from the wind and cold. In kindness, her head rarely rests on the pillow, and if she does this happily, so long as the child is comfortable, the kind mother seeks no solace for herself.
Again, considering, right, maybe if we are blessed with the ability to have attendants tend to the child, as if you're some social economic situation, you could afford somebody to do these things, and you could put your head down. But in a time, and still this is true, is perhaps not at this age of the child's development, right? But you have seen undoubtedly, and we can imagine undoubtedly, a mother clutching a newborn, still doing things, right? Whether it's the house chores, whether it's the whatever, at some point in time, procurement of food, and the iconic sleeve thing is just, in my mind, the seeing of this, the sheltering of the child from a gust of wind, or the thing, right? Or that, lick the finger to clean the child, 6, who's got 6? Pass the microphone back.
The kindness of suckling the child at her breast and nurturing and bringing up the child. The kindness of a mother is like a great earth. The stern father is like the encompassing heaven. One covers from above and the other supports from below. The kindness of the parents is such that they know no hatred or anger towards the offspring and are no displeased, even if the child is born crippled. After the mother carries the child in the womb and gives birth to it, the parents care and protect it together until the end of their days.
So this is, even if the child is born crippled, right? Of course, I mentioned postpartum depression and psychiatric conditions and other circumstances of life when the woman post giving birth even murders their own child, right? Still, in their heart, in their soul, if you will, in their true nature, this is true. That they know no hatred towards their offspring and are not displeased, even if the child is born crippled, etc., etc. It still, even for a mother who has murdered the child in postpartum depression, this is still true. This is Dharma. However, this is overshadowed by mental instability, by the massive, at times, hormonal change that pregnancy draws on the person, right? By the shock, by the whatever means necessary. Nothing changes. The expression may not be exactly as penned in this sutra, and yet none of it is untrue. Because if we were to take away, let's say, the depressive element, then she wouldn't then find another means of murdering the child. It's an impairment. But impairment and the obstruction of something that is. This is how we have to understand this sutra. Number 8. Pass the mic, please.
Kindness of washing away the unclean. Originally, she had a pretty face and a beautiful body. Her spirit was strong and vibrant. Her eyebrows were like fresh green willows, and her complexion would have put a red rose to shame. But her kindness is so deep that she will forgo a beautiful face. Although washing away the filth injures her constitution, the kind mother acts solely for the sake of her sons and daughters, and willingly allows her beauty to fade.
Pre-Maybelline statement, perhaps, right? When the moisturizing and all of this thing, but still, pre-Botox, pre all those things, right? There's a glow about a pregnant woman, right? They say, oh, you must be pregnant. The old ladies of the village knew. No ultrasound. Old lady would shake her, wrinkly finger, say, "Look at her. She's with the baby," right? So how do you know? There's an aura, there's a glow, right? And then when you see a woman past the birth, right, the exhaustion, even though the elation on the face is there when she holds the child and whatever, but there is the spending, right? And the washing of the unclean, who in the right state of mind likes washing shit? Nobody. But they do. Not only do they do, but the celebration of the first one, right? There's cards sent to the family members. You pooped. Look at the poopsies, right? No one has celebrated a stinky doo-doo more than a mother who has given birth to a child. They say, look at the doody, right? Oh my God, you poopsies, right? And there's an excitement about it. It is weird something, right? Now, later on, when the ego returns. So, by the way, why are the female members of the Sangha called Bosal? What does Bosal mean? Bodhisattva, right? Right? Songsim Bosal. Gosa is for male members, for female members, Bosal, Bodhisattva. Are all the female members of the Sangha Bodhisattvas? Yes. Are all the female members of the Sangha also selfish and egotistic humans? Yes. and that those two things come and go and come and go. But on the core, this is the same here. A mother later on may, when the humanness, the unwiseness, the ego, the greed, the anger, the selfishness wells up with her, right? She might say, look what you did to me, right? I used to be lovely and radiant, and now I'm, tired. It is not mother's voice. It is a human, it is a voice of ignorance and ego, right? So we have to understand this correctly. Nothing is changing, no matter what the expression of it is. It is present in there the way that your Buddha nature is present within you. What do we have, number 8? Who's got the mics?
The kindness of always thinking of the child when it has traveled far. The death of loved ones is difficult to endure, but separation is also painful. When the child travels afar, the mother worries in her village. From morning until night, her heart is with her child, and thousand tears fall from her eyes. Like the monkey weeping silently in love for the child, bit by bit her heart is broken.
Yeah. Because of the mixture of the streams, the stream of this iconic or this pure motherhood and the Buddha nature, and the stream of the humanness, let's call it, right? Sometimes the kindness of always thinking of the child when it travels far is expressed as, where are you going? Where are you going? Right? And the child's like, leave me alone. I'm going to Frank's. I'm going to Stevens. I'm going to John's. Leave me alone. I'm going to the store. I'm going outside. Where are you going? Where are you going? Right? Who are you with? And where are you going? Yeah. And so the expression of it may be sometimes, but not as refined, right? But may not come out refined. But what is the motivation in there? It's genuine worry. Then also consider, right? The person has left wherever you'd gone. How did they put it? From morning until night, her heart is with her child, and 1,000 tears fall from her eyes. Parents, mothers, fathers. Do you think fathers cry? Mm-hmm. Do you think mothers cry? Mm-hmm. Have you seen your mother cry?
Yes.
Have you seen your father cry?
Yes.
Many people have, many people have not. Many times, parents will hide the tears, right? They will hide the pain, they will hide the thing, right? It depends on what generation we are born in. The child rearing techniques are vastly different, right? We had there's the helicopter parent, then there's the, don't touch them. There was a philosophy of do not touch, do not tend to the child. They'll get over it if they're having night terrors and whatever. You just let them be, they will settle. There was and there were books written on these topics throughout the ages. There were philosophies that supported this. So the techniques of child rearing and tending to the children have been all over the map. And sometimes one of those, or by personal whatever preference, the tears are hidden. They're never shown. Why? I don't want my child to see me suffering. I don't want my child to, it's almost like the Buddha's parents. And we don't want him to experience suffering, so we're going to build him castles and castles and castles. It's not real, but we're going to build him some world to live in that isn't realistic, but nonetheless, why? Overprotectiveness, misguidedness, ignorance, modeled behavior from prior generation, too smart for one's own good, you name it. We have a whole slew of what obstructs our Buddha nature is the same mechanism is what obstructs the mother's motherly nature. It's the same mechanism. 9, is it?
The kindness of deep care and devotion. How heavy is the parent's kindness and emotional concern? Their kindness is deep and difficult to repay. Willingly, they undergo suffering on their child's behalf. If the child toils, the parents are uncomfortable. If they hear that he has traveled afar, they worry that at night he will have to lie in the cold. Even a moment's pain suffered by their sons or daughters will cause the parents sustained distress.
Again, consider the timeliness of it. Now travel means, you get in your car, you get on an airplane, you get in an Uber, you get it, it's even though perhaps for a girl, the worry is, given the danger of the world, that kind of thing, perhaps, it's more visible, but it is not reserved for the girl only, not for the parent. So lying down in a cold may not be exactly transferable to our modern time, but having a roofie slipped into your drink, it may. Right? Number 10. Somebody?
I'll take it. Thank you. The kindness of ultimate pity and sympathy. The kindness of parents is profound and important. Their tender concern never ceases. From the moment they awake each day, their thoughts are with their children. Whether the children are near or far away, the parents think of them often. Even if a mother lives for 100 years, she will constantly worry about her 80-year-old child.
Even if a mother lives for... Moja mamusia nadal mnie nazywa syneczku. Syneczku, co robisz? Syneczku, to i tamto. My mother says, syneczku in Polish is son, but we have a way of making anything cutesy. So syn is son, synek is syneczku is like, no, syneczku. The Spanish language has a thing too like that, right? Yeah, you make a cute thing out of it, right? Yeah. Bearded, bald, but still, syneczku, syneczku. Yes. Yeah. Age doesn't matter, right? And so the first line, the kindness of parents, the tender concern never ceases even after they have passed from this world. Ergo, we tend to our ancestors and parents when they pass for this very same reason. Now, how are we on time? Okay, this is an important thing. Do you wish to know when such kindness and love ends? Says the Buddha. It doesn't even dissipate. It doesn't even begin to dissipate after her life is over. If there were a person who can, and this really a brace for impact, because the Buddha, having completely understood not the one snap of a finger, sometimes we say of this life is the same as the soap bubble, right? Or sometimes the sutras say it's like the foam on the ocean wave, when it crashes and then foams and then it's gone immediately. Or as fast as a lightning strike, it just cuts the sky, and that's the speed of life for us. And it's over. The truth of that is lifetimes upon lifetimes. The fact that the Buddha's knowing of the lifetimes of lifetimes, being able to see the karmic unfolding and all of this is the far-reaching understanding that he scolded his monks not to have. And so to drive a point home, he says, because Aranjanji asks, well, how do we repay this? Right. If there were a person who carries his father on his left shoulder and his mother on his right shoulder, until his bones were ground to powder by the weight, and they bored through to the marrow, and if that person were to circumambulate Mount Sumeru for 100,000 eons until the blood that flowed out from his feet covered his ankles, that person will still not have repaid the deep kindness of his parent. If there were a person who during famine sliced the flesh of his own body to feed his parents,